Hi, fourth grade, and welcome back. Today we are continuing with the West region of the United States, lesson 2, chapters 2 and 3 today. Today we're learning about the history and people of the West region of the United States. And we know we'll be successful when we can explain how the West gained its land, and we can explain the people and tourist attractions in the West. We have 4 key vocabulary words today. So our first word is missions. So these are churches or other places where missionaries live and work. Our second word is immigrants. These are people who move into a new country and settle there. Our third word is descendants. So this is a person's children, their children, and so on into the future. And then the last one is exported. So it sent products to another country to sell them there. All right, we're going to start with chapter 2, history of the West region. So Native American groups use the land in the West. Near the Arctic, the Inuit and Aleut hunted for food in the snow and ice. Farther south, Native Americans made canoes from evergreen trees. Warmer southern areas and what is California today provided easy access to food. Polynesians fished from the islands of Hawaii. Europeans entered the West in the 1500s. Spanish explorers sailing up the coast claimed the area for Spain. In the 1700s, settlers built missions to teach their religion to Native Americans. And over here in our picture, it says Native Americans in Alaska hunted seal and caught fish to survive in the frozen climate. Mountain men. In the early 1800s, Meriwether Lewis and William Clark explored a huge land area called the Louisiana Territory. The United States had just purchased the area from France. Lewis and Clark found routes through the rugged Rocky Mountains and reached the Pacific Ocean. Mountain men worked in these mountains. They trapped beavers and other animals for their fur. They worked for Eastern companies who used the fur to make clothing. They also traded goods with the Native Americans. And there it shows a picture of mountain men encountered many dangers in the wilderness. Routes westward. As the United States grew as a nation, people looked for new lands to settle. In the mid-1800s, pioneers in covered wagons traveled across the plains and the Rocky Mountains into the West. The Oregon Trail spanned more than 2,000 miles between Missouri and the Oregon Territory. The California Trail led farther south. The Mormons, a religious group looking for a safe new land to settle, took the Mormon Trail into Utah. We're going to be talking more about the Oregon Trail here as we continue through social studies. So this is just a good introduction of the West. In a picture up here, it says, pioneers packed up covered wagons and traveled west along the Oregon Trail. The Gold Rush. In the 1840s, the population of California had more Native Americans and settlers from Mexico than American settlers. But everything changed when gold was discovered in 1848. The following year, thousands of 49ers traveled to California to find their fortune. Chinese immigrants joined American settlers looking for gold. So did immigrants from Europe, Mexico, and South America. Gold was later discovered in Colorado, Idaho, Montana, Alaska, and Nevada. Mining towns grew up throughout the West. Would you travel really far and dangerously to get some gold? I don't know if I would or not. Making a connection, railroad tracks soon began to cross the country. In the 1860s, the Central Pacific Railroad started laying tracks that went east from California. The Union Pacific laid tracks that began in Nebraska and headed west. The lines finally met in Promontory, Utah in 1869. This transcontinental railroad connected the east with the west. Railroads brought goods and people across the country faster and more easily than ever before. So here's a timeline of the West. So in 1542, Spanish explorers sail up the California coast. And then in 1769, the Spanish start building missions in California. From 1841 to 1860 was when the Oregon Trail serves as the main route west. So that's where lots of people were starting to move that way. In 1848, gold is discovered in California and the population of the West grows. And then in 1869, the Transcontinental Railroad connects the Western and Eastern United States. Alaska and Hawaii. The United States found other ways to expand. It purchased Alaska from Russia in 1867. The land was difficult to settle, but had many natural resources such as trees and fur-bearing animals. It was also rich with minerals such as gold. Alaska became the 49th state in 1959. The Hawaiian Islands were a stopping point for ships throughout the 1800s. Settlers also set up missions there. Hawaii became the last state to join the United States in 1959. So up top it says Alaska has a coastline along both the Pacific and Arctic Oceans, and Alaskan settlers built their towns along the coast. Something just to think about is, when did the United States purchase Alaska from Russia? So you could look back on the text and see if you can find that answer. Artists and inventors of the West. So Beverly Cleary is an award-winning author of books for children, including Beezus and Ramona, The Mouse and the Motorcycle, and many more. She was born in Oregon. Another one is Gutzon Borglum. He was an American sculptor. The Mount Rushmore National Memorial in South Dakota is his most famous carving. He was born in Idaho. And the last one is Levi Strauss. He was born in Bavaria and came to California during the gold rush. He sold strong denim pants to miners. Today, Levi's jeans are sold around the world. I hope you've heard about some of those important things before, such as Beverly Cleary, or about Mount Rushmore. And maybe some of you guys still wear Levi's jeans today. Chapter 3, People of the West. California, Alaska, and Montana are 3 of the 4 largest states in terms of land size in the nation. In terms of people, California has the largest population of all the states. But the West also contains the states with the smallest populations, Alaska and Wyoming. Most people in the West live in or near the cities. Some areas, such as the high mountains or dry deserts, are not suitable for people to live. And there it shows you a picture, and it says, today Los Angeles has the 2nd largest population of any city in the United States. You can see how busy it is, and look at all those big, tall buildings in LA. A variety of people. Much of the West population is made up of people related to European immigrants. During the 1800s, many Chinese came to settle in California to look for gold and to help build railroads. Chinatown in San Francisco was one of the largest groups of Chinese outside of Asia. California shares a border with Mexico, and many Mexicans have settled in California. The Los Angeles area has the largest Mexican population outside of Mexico. Up top it says San Francisco's Chinatown is popular with tourists from around the world. On page 25 it says Native peoples live in West too. California has the largest Native American population of any state. Descendants, so people passed down, of Polynesians who settled the area over 1,000 years ago live in Hawaii. Inuit and Aleut make their homes in Alaska. Native Americans continue many of their traditions, languages, and crafts. And there you see a picture. It says the Inuit have lived in Alaska for thousands of years, and about 1/3 of all Inuit live in Alaska. A variety of cities. Seattle, Washington is a major port city. It has easy access to the Pacific because it lies on Puget Sound, a part of the ocean that reaches into the state. The port became an important destination when gold was discovered in Alaska in the 1890s. People could travel by train to Seattle. Then they traveled by boat north to Alaska. Today, many products are exported to China, Japan, and other countries from Seattle. So remember, that's when we make the gold or the product and we send it out. So we export a lot of items from there. Several of Washington's largest ports lie along the Puget Sound, and fur traders built the first European settlement on Puget Sound in 1833. Over here, we see Las Vegas. So Las Vegas, Nevada is a popular tourist spot. Other major tourist cities in the West are Honolulu, Hawaii, and Los Angeles, California. Tourists also visit mountain regions. Thousands come to Wyoming, Colorado, Utah, and other states to ski and snowboard. In the summer, they come to hike, and they also visit Yellowstone National Park to see the park's beautiful geysers. Tourists spend money on hotels, restaurants, and casinos, all of which provide for local people. And there is Las Vegas in a picture, and it says Las Vegas is famous for the bright lights of its many casinos and hotels. The big truth, animals of the West. Many animals brave the wild, rugged lands of the West. Polar bears live on the cold, snowy coast and islands of Alaska. A layer of fat and thick yellow-white fur keeps them warm. Their fur also blends in with the snow. This makes them hard to see while they hunt for seals. Up top it says California condors are the largest flying birds in North America. There are very few condors left, however. To save condors, scientists have captured and raised them. Some have been released back into the wild. And down below there, it says Rocky Mountain bighorn sheep live in herds in the Rocky Mountains. Their special hooves help them move easily over the mountains. The males, called rams, fight each other by crashing their large curled horns together. You can see them fighting right there by crashing their horns together. Okay, so your journal question today is what types of people have settled in the West region? Make sure to use pages 24 and 25 to support your answer. Good job today, fourth grade. I will see you again soon.